Arsene Wenger's idea to replace throw-ins for kick-ins is set to be trialled by IFAB. Wenger is now FIFA's chief of global football development, so he's looking at ways to improve the game. And
it's a made-up position is what that is.
Well, let's see if this will go ahead full-time. He says the target to make the game more spectacular and quicker, and maybe with throw-ins you could play with your feet, but in a limit of 5 seconds, for example, things like that. 5 minutes before the end, a throw-in for you should be an advantage. But in these situations, you're facing 10 outfield players in play, whilst you only have 9. Frank Leboeuf and Gab Marcotti still with us. Frank, you love this idea, don't you?
I love this idea because, you know, this idea has been tested for during the Tournoi International of Toulon for like 40 years, where they do that every time. And the last tournament just ended with France winning against, I'm sorry, Ali, Venezuela. In final,
don't worry about it.
And it was the under 20 years old, but it's been tested there, and I think it gives pace to the game, and it clarifies the fact that we are football players. We don't play with our hands except for goalkeepers. So why do we do throw-ins? I agree with that. You just have to make sure that the opponent won't be close to the touchline, because otherwise you can't kick the ball. So you have to do like a free kick, like 10 yards away. But I think it will just justify the fact that we are football players and we play with our feet, and that you can kick long balls with your foot instead of that using your hands. So I'm 100% with Arsene Wenger. And again, it's been tested like for 40 years, and I've seen that tournament many times when I was young, and I really enjoy seeing that during football games.
Ali, do you share this enthusiasm?
I am really sad, very sad, Kay, and I'm going to tell you why. What are we going to do with the throwing coaches?
Stevie's going to be devastated too.
What's going to happen with the throwing coaches? What's going to happen with Rory Delap? Huh? Honestly, quite frankly, I really have not given much thought to the idea of using kick-ins. I didn't think that this was an issue in the game. I don't think it's something that needs to be looked into. I don't think that is something that's going to be very easy to actually put into practice, because in places like South America, for example, where I come from, slowing down the game, whether it's for throw-ins or kickings, it is in the blood of the ball boys that work in South America. A ball will disappear so very quickly when you're trying to push for a goal. You can never find a ball, and that's not going to change whether you have kick-ins or throw-ins. And then we change the nature of the game. Because once you have a kick-in, I don't know, 30, 40 yards from goal, guess what's going to happen? We're just swinging balls into the box. That's what's going to happen. It's a free kick, essentially, and we're swinging balls into the box. It's no longer about build-up play. We get a free kick from here, 30 yards out, 40 yards out, we're swinging it in and hoping to get on the end of it. That changes the nature of the way the game is played.
Shaka, you were on IFAB. Did you have any part in this? Kick-ins?
It was discussed. This idea has been floated for quite some time. I wasn't in favor of it then, and probably after this most recent explanation, even less in favor of it now. Now, first of all, when you walk into IFAB and you're part of that decision-making process, they say to you, we're a conservative organization. We don't want to change the laws of the game unless we absolutely have to. If it ain't broke, we ain't trying to fix it. I don't see how this falls in an immediate radar to make the game any better. To Arsene Wenger's explanation, which, again, as much as you may like the idea, and I take Frank's word for it, that it improves the game in some contexts, at the very least in youth football, you cannot say that the effort is in to speed the game up. Because you can take just as much time on a free kick as you can take in a throw-in. That changes nothing in terms of time wasting. In terms of the advantage, you cannot say, well, you're taking a throw-in, so the opposing team has 10 outfield players and you only have 9. That's a disadvantage. If you're taking a free kick, The opposing team has 10 men, 10 outfield players on the park, and you have 9.
But he did say it had to be taken within 5 seconds or whatever.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. As much as I say, IFAB are a conservative organization, the referee is equipped to deal with time wasting. Referees can book and send players off for time wasting. Because they don't, or because those laws aren't enforced as stringently as maybe some in the game would like to see, doesn't mean that you reinvent the wheel. You just give the officials, or you say to them, when goalkeepers were taking too long with the ball in their hands, a law was brought in to put an end to that. I don't see why you have to change the nature of the game when the referees, with a whistle, have all that they need to speed the game up in the way that they are describing.
Gab?
All right. I just want to stick up for Arsene Wenger for a second. I don't personally like this innovation very much. Literally, his idea is to brainstorm. You've got people, Florentino Perez, talking about how, like, younger generations, they don't watch football matches because they get too slow and boring. You have people who don't like what they do in South America with the ball boys hiding the balls. So he's saying, all right, how can we fix it? What are some of the solutions that we can come up with and evolve? So he's throwing this out there. Personally, this leaves me a little bit cold. I think the other reason where I think it might be beneficial and people would like it is that a lot of times we see teams counter press or generally press high up the pitch. Obviously, if the guy can launch it from a throw-in, rather than having to throw it in, it's a lot harder to do that, and it would open up the game. These are the arguments in favor of it. Let's find out if it's worthwhile. Let's do what they did last time. They did this in the 90s. They said, let's trial it not just at the Toulon tournament, but let's trial it at youth level. I think it was an under-17 World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. Might have been something else. They did it. They got the feedback from the coaches and the players. They said, no, we don't like it. It's not right for us. And they moved on. And let's talk about this in 30 years. Now, 30 years later, they're talking about it again. I don't think we can have this knee-jerk sort of conservative reaction where any new idea sucks. Let's go. Let's trial it if we think it's worth trialing. And let's wait and see what it would actually look like.
Gab, you said he's throwing the idea out there. I think you mean he's kicking the idea.
I was worth the entry money all on it, so.
Frank, you get the final say on this one.
I think it just opened. It's an opportunity to open another door and to maybe have more option than a throw-in. And not necessarily like Ali explained that you will kick a long ball, but you can change side, you can open up, and it's true that when you are under the pressure, when you have a throw-in for yourself, and you feel the pressure of the opponent, 9 out of 10 you're going to lose the ball in your own half because you're going to be pressurized. Where with the ball on the floor, with your foot, you can find other destinations, I would say, with the ball, and I think it will be better. I remember the back pass. I think Xhaka have experienced the back passes before that he could take with his hands. I think Ali is too young maybe to have experienced that, but it's been a massive change.
I wasn't that young.
Okay, well, okay, good. So we experienced that. It was a real change. It brought something big into that game and changed the positioning and the skills of the goalkeepers. But I don't know if it will do the same with the throw-in. But I think it's an experience that has to be tested again and maybe in a top level to see if it helps the wing backs or it helps the game overall. I'm not sure about that, but I think everything to get more into the game and make the game maybe faster, it's always a good solution for me.
Why punish the pressing team? And this is an example that both Gab and Frank had mentioned. Why punish the pressing team? And why reward the team that can't get out of pressure? Why give them an easy out? This is part of the game. Being able to play out of pressure is part of being a good team. Breaking those lines of pressure is part of the challenge. So why make it easier? None of us are sitting here and saying, let's make it easier for the team that cannot pass through lines. That's their problem. That's not the pressing team's problem.
Because,
and I'm not going to give him an out. Why would I give him an out? That is something that there's no need for that. I don't think you change the nature of the game. Hold on, Gab. You don't change the nature of the game to make it easier for a team that can't do the basic things on the field. So now you can kick it long? This is how you release pressure? I don't think cutting corners helps in the long run.
I fundamentally agree with you about the pressing game. Like I said, to be clear, I'm not in favor of this, but you have certain situations, particularly in certain leagues, where both teams just press the crap out of each other for 90 minutes. I can think of some Bundesliga teams who go and try to do this. Every goal is the result of a direct mistake. And it's very, very difficult to play because teams play with a high line, spaces get really, really tight. And sure, if you have wonderfully technical players, you can play through it and it's pretty and you still get chances. But there is some concern and there is some data behind it from some people. And again, not that I'm agreeing with this, that suggests people are slightly turned off by this because you actually see fewer goals as a result. And this is something where you want to open it up, that certain teams have gotten too good at pressing, and other teams really struggle with it.
Frank?
Yeah, just one last thing. I think the English always do perfect stuff, and perfect rules and perfect laws of football. But don't you think it's a mistake from the beginning of the football game? Why do we have to do throw-ins in football for football players? We do goal kicks with the foot. We do corner kicks with the foot. Only goalkeepers have the right to play with their hands. But otherwise, why do we have to do throw-ins? And wasn't it a mistake that we can rectify and do kick-ins? Sorry.
Let me ask this, though. I mean, a lot of the focus is on, well, it's in the 89th minute and you're one down and you want to launch it into the opposing box. What if it's 89th minute, I'm one up? What's stopping me from playing, a kick-in to Ali, who's 12 inches away, and we just kill the game just like that? There's two sides to this very coin that it may just prove to counter each other. Again, just going back to IFAB, say they are, as a conservative organization. If it's not broke, don't try to fix it. Throw-ins is not one. Of all the things, I've softened my stance around stopping the clock, etc. I think that deserves further investigation. But I just don't see throw-ins as being the thing that will bring the younger generation back to the game. I really don't.
You know what the real issue here is, Shaq? It's the fact that Toulon tournament, France won it, and then Frank then is all for it. That's, in the end, that's it.
If Venezuela won it, we'd never be having this.
Absolutely not.
Football would be perfect.
Yeah.
Especially against Venezuela.
There you go.
Meanwhile, if you'd like...
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.